So the point of this session is really to just take a deep breath and reflect on what was a really strange year for farming, and particularly if you were doing direct market sales. I'm here to facilitate this conversation, and we'll try to bring in as many voices as possible, but this is really just a time for you all to share with one another. And I suspect that this will be a conversation that continues into the spring as well. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen, and we can open up the gallery view. So if you go to the top right in your Zoom meeting, there's a little button that says view, and you can choose speaker view or gallery view. And gallery view will let you see everyone's pictures at the same time, which is kind of nice. And I think we need, actually, you know what? We should maybe put into the chat, pop up in the chat, and just so we know who all's here, why don't you put in your name and where you farm at, if you farm, and what products you raise. All right, so while everyone's getting those in, let me put the big question out for us all to think about. So you're thinking about production, your labor management, your market choices, online sales, pack house sanitation. Who wants to kick it off and share what is a change COVID forced you to make this year that turned out for the better?
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
So I'd been given advice before I started the U-Pick blueberry business to do by appointment only. And I did not heed that advice, and we just went, our first year was 2019, and we had, just hours posted and people showed up, so sometimes it was really busy, sometimes it wasn't. And our second day open in 2020, we opened at 9 a.m. and closed at 10:10 because we were overwhelmed. We had no more parking. We were almost out of buckets for picking, and it was bedlam. And I was feeling really overwhelmed. So we closed and switched to appointment only. And we will stay with appointment only. It was really awesome to be able to spread people out and better plan for who was going to be in the field at one time.
Kim, what are you using a platform for your appointment scheduling?
You know what, I'm looking for one.
Okay.
It was piecemealed together, and what I used in 2020 was a Google number. People left voicemails and text messages on that. They were also leaving me messages on Facebook. I was getting a few personal text messages and emails, and it was chaotic because I have a dual monitor because I teach online, besides farm. And I would have 5 things literally open on my computer screen, trying to figure out who was first and filling in those time slots. And I definitely need something different. So I'm open.
Well, I know Molly Schindler was using Calendly for her CSA scheduling, and I've used that now to schedule interviews. And it works pretty slick, even the free version. So that might be one to look into. Thanks, Kim. Anyone else want to follow? Donna? Donna, I see that you're talking, but you're pretty quiet.
Okay.
Go ahead and try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Well, you're pretty quiet, but I'll just turn up my volume.
Okay. So because of COVID, farmers markets were canceled, and I immediately became aware that I was going to need to move a whole lot of produce. And so I started doing online sales and having a drive-through market at the farm, and started that actually the 1st of April. because all of the food that I had grown for a local college wasn't going to be able to be moved because school was canceled. So I will continue to have through markets at the farm, but I don't think I am going to do other public markets. We just found that the time it takes to prepare, the transportation time, and then the time spent at the market just really wasn't as cost effective as actually taking orders for produce online, harvesting exactly what we needed, and then handing it off right there at the farm. And so my hope is to not ever have to go back to the market model, knowing full well that the farmers market was a very necessary thing for me to do in the beginning to become established in the community and to build a reputation and a clientele. But now maybe switching gears and moving to a different way of selling produce.
And I know one of the things that we talked about in the summer was that you were having fewer customers but larger sales. Were some of those farmers market customers that you feel like made a better transition switching over?
Financially, it was so much better to do it this way than the markets, even though the market is about 20% of my my budgeted income every year. This made so much more sense. I spent so much less money on labor and spent so much less time. And never at a market would somebody, spend $50 at my table. But they have no problem spending $50 online to buy a one box of vegetables plus add-on items. It was pretty remarkable.
Thanks. Who else wants to share or ask questions from anything you've heard yet? Ardith, are you raising your hand? Or are you waving at me to know? Oh, you're muted.
I didn't know how to hold up my hand. Sorry.
There you go.
Well, I was following it because we had some similar experiences here in Cass County, and in that we had a really restricted somewhat farmers market, even though that we call it produce in the park here in Atlantic, Iowa. And so they still, customers could come, but they had to put in, fill out their form and then drive by and pick up. So we tried to distance them from the thing. Now, my husband Gil and I at Harrisdale Farmstead had already, decided, or we did decide even that because we're both old enough to be in a vulnerable group, that we would not participate in the market, but we could, take pre-orders and then it was a place to drop off and have people pick up things at the market. And then when it came to, we've traditionally had a harvest market the Monday before Thanksgiving. And so we went to, after much back and forth and trying to figure out what would be safe, we went to a virtual market then with people going online to order from all the vendors that would have been at the thing, and then had a pickup place. And that worked quite well. And then when it came Christmas time, there was enough interest that we had a pop-up market for ahead of Christmas with a similar kind of thing and then we had an online system, and I don't know, the market manager managed that, so I don't know which market system we used. And then now we're talking about a February market and a Valentine's market, Sweetheart Market, and probably one around Easter. And so from our standpoint, we only have sweet potatoes left now, and so it's not cost effective, but one of our goals is really to build and support the local farmers, the local food and farming. So we think this is a good move in that direction.
Great. Eric, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to share next? What change did you make that you're keeping? I can imagine there were a few.
Many, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been growing veggies for 20 years up here north of Decorah, and we've done traditional CSA bags. For the last 5 or 6 years, we've been doing a market share at the farmer's market. So people buying a CSA share basically in the spring, and then they got to work their balance down at the market. We did farmers markets for 20 years, worked with the local food co-op. So COVID hits this year. We decided a year ago that we wouldn't do CSA anymore. So all of a sudden we decided with COVID, how are we going to safely, work with our customers? So Donna, our experience was a lot like yours, I guess, in that we actually purchased and kind of an online platform through Barn to Door, a group out of Seattle that works with farmers across the country. And they had weekly meetings with us virtually and cost us $1,000 up front. And we were actually quite pleased with it, and we'll continue with them this year. So we ended up doing home deliveries for CSA. So we ended up with maybe 60 or 70 CSA shares last year, delivered around Decorah once a week. And that worked pretty well. We still did online newsletters. It took us longer than we thought, of course, and to do the deliveries. So we split it up amongst our crew. So we each had like a 2-hour route. That worked pretty slick. Then we also did what we called our online store. And so again, through this barn to door platform, people could order from our store. So each week, on a Saturday morning, we would take a picture of, kohlrabi, and we'd say, there are 3 kohlrabi for $2. And that was an item that they could buy on the store. And middle of summer and into the fall, we had pretty diverse offerings. We kind of used our farmers market prices, but then added a delivery fee, $3 delivery fee, unless they purchased more than $20. We thought, like Donna, you're saying, at farmers market, it was unusual to have people buy more than $20 worth of stuff. Online, they did. And especially with that little incentive, they would get free delivery if it was over $20. And so I would say 3/4 of our orders were over $20, which is great. And then we would deliver those the same afternoon that we did our CSA deliveries. So once a week was our delivery day, and it worked well. So we're actually going to keep that system this year and not do the physical farmers markets. And so both the CSA will be delivered, home deliveries, and our online store. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Wow, quite a big change. Kathy, you got your hand up?
I do. Yeah, a couple of things. I'm speaking from a consumer and viewpoint, and also wanted to make one mention as working for PFI, and that is that Barn to Door is actually an exhibitor. I don't know if you all have noticed that, but that may be something for you to check up on. I have not yet talked with them, but it's good to hear that you are mentioning that you are already working with one of our exhibitors. As a consumer living in Des Moines, it's been amazing to see the changes that have come about as a result of COVID. And honestly, for the most part, they're good. Now, we really miss the farmers markets. There are many of them in Des Moines, including the big one in downtown Des Moines that, of course, we couldn't visit this year. But we have been a member of the Iowa Food Co-op ever since Gary started it years and years ago. And the growth in that has been phenomenal. And they have been able to grow with COVID in remarkable ways. From expanding the number of producers, expanding the number of consumers, multifold, to allowing is setting up delivery or pickup times. They're doing delivery. A lot of my friends have joined just because they are now so willing to support local foods that it's amazing. And then we also have Jenny Quiner's Dog Patch Urban Garden here, who has done some similar things, and she has just been able to expand the amount of pickup and delivery exponentially too. So it's just very exciting to see what remarkable changes are coming and how people are now grasping onto the concept of local foods being a better option. So yay PFI, and yay to all of you producers for doing such remarkable things. Thank you.
Well, Gary, I see you're on here. From the food co-op perspective, what was a big change? I know there were many big changes, but what was a big change that you all made that you're like, we're definitely going to keep doing that?
Oh, I mean, their sales doubled from like $20,000 on a 2-week basis to $40,000 overnight in April. And if you do 40,000 every 2 weeks, you got 80,000 a year. I mean, here's what I think, and I've said this: survive long enough to get lucky. And this COVID thing, changed the dynamics completely. Just changed the dynamics completely. And I'm not saying something what the food cooperative does is the right way to do things, but it is a direct to consumer, and it has some assets to its ability to do the work that it's doing. I don't know, because I'm not involved, how much stress that caused all these folks down there, because they had to figure out how to, only 3 people in the store at one time kind of thing. And producers, you stay outside and we'll come get the stuff from you. And all those things they had to do are amazing. But I think the direct to consumer model is the best way to go, as opposed to trying to do retail or food service. But the other thing that's happening is stress causes innovation, and we're seeing this innovation, amazing things happening. I mean, Kathy talked about it, and I've heard Donna talk now, and I'm sure in Kim and so forth and so on. I do know that in Des Moines, there were several places where the 3 or 4 producers would come at a certain point in time. And I know like
Jill?
Lost Lake had cheese, and then they had meat. And so there was a little mini markets in the parking lots like of a winery. And that was really successful. So this innovation, I think I hope it stays. We don't know what the future holds, but I hope it stays. That's what I got to say.
Thanks, Gary. Well, Jill, I think you're the next logical person to share, since Gary gave you a good nod there.
Oh, let me see if I can.
You're good.
I bet am I on?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So what a year. We were really lucky. And I like Gary's point about survive long enough to be lucky, because we weren't innovative. We were lucky. We have done direct delivery to our consumers over the winter for, I don't know, 8 years now. It was originally a winter CSA, and we morphed it into custom orders for our customers, mostly because we had eggs all winter. But 2 years ago, after we dropped our winter CSA, we added Ebersol Cattle Company to our direct deliveries. So customers order on a Google form every 2 weeks all winter, and custom order whatever they want: beef, vegetables, and eggs, and any of our other farm products we have available. And then they meet us at a central location, and we trade food for money. But this year, with market not opening up, we were able to just transition that group straight into our farmers market schedule. And we added Lost Lake Cheese and worked with Peachtree Brewery. We were in their parking lot. And so people on one form could order cheese, eggs, vegetables, beef. They could get their beer or whatever beverages they wanted from Peachtree. And then they just drove through the parking lot, and we car hopped all of their food directly into their trunk. Most of them prepaid, so it was minimal contact. And my experience was like Donna's. It was such a revolutionary thing for me to not do farmers market. And that was a huge part of our business development. But my inclination now is this makes so much more sense for our business model and where it's going and where I want my focus to be heading. And our consumers loved it. So now that we're in winter, obviously we had to move back inside. I'm not willing to car hop lettuce in 10-degree weather. But we still do socially distanced. They come into the backside of Peachtree, they pick up their produce, they go back out, everybody's masked. And the the consensus from most of the consumers that we have is that they would prefer this to the big farmers market. So it's been an amazing experience for us.
Are you going back to the Des Moines market when it reopens?
Well, the farmers market has yet to contact their farmers this year. So I don't have to answer that question yet.
Okay. Fair
But
enough.
yeah, this has been amazing.
Great. How about someone else? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like to share.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ben.
My name is Ben, and I recently got hired as the operations manager for Field to Family, the food hub in Iowa City. And I actually kind of got hired into an online market as it was kind of being, just as it was running. So my first 2 weeks of the market, I was actually a volunteer, but then eventually I got hired on full time, and my main job was really to try and make we had an online curbside pickup where we used local food marketplace for customers to order like on the weekday, and then they would do like a drive-through on the weekends. And really the main task for me was to make just the logistics and the operations like easy and efficient and safe for everybody. And I saw that there was a couple of vendors that we worked with, like Bonnie Riggins and Emma, and some other people that got to see it from a producer side. And then from a customer side, it worked out pretty well where we would just have like half-hour windows, and we were able to serve up to, I believe it was like 90 cars per window for 6 total windows. So we served at the peak, it was like over 500 customers. And each customer, it kind of rang true to what everybody else has said, that they ordered more online than they did when they were in person. And so I know the vendors were really happy about that. But I guess I think it was Gary talk about just kind of the ins and outs of like executing something like this. And from our experience, it takes a lot of volunteers. And that was something that, we were fortunate enough to have the community help out. And then just I guess to share my experience of some obstacles that was interesting was like dealing with some larger produce of like melons and sweet corn. And we had a meat producer who would bring down his chest freezers. And so like some things that I did was I kind of broke everything up into little sections. So, as cars came in, it'd be 2 or 3 volunteers are in charge of distributing out the list of corn. And so I would generate a list of corn using local food marketplace. And so then it kind of broke it up, and that helped minimize mistakes. And so that was just something that was an interesting challenge to go through as the season progressed. And it went well as the season went on, and we actually tried to do our own market where it was just in-house, and we were able to serve 250 customers per week, and that was for the months of November and December. And those customers, I think they averaged like over $50 an order too. So that was neat to see that there was a support, just to echo what everybody else said.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, Ben, it sounds like you'll have some logistical experience to share with other hub folks around, and also great jacket.
Yeah, thanks.
Who else? Bonnie, I heard your name pop in there. Do you want to share something that you did different this year because of COVID that you are definitely going to do next year again?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Bonnie.
So what I did different because of COVID is so I'm a small vegetable farm in Iowa City, and I was selling everything, 100% of my veggies at the Iowa City Farmers Market previously. And so when they canceled last year because of COVID, I quickly advertised 4 weeks CSA in May and then a 5-week in June. And the reason I split it up instead of doing like just a CSA was because my farm is so small and I work alone. I just didn't want to open the May up to more than what I thought I could produce. But it worked out great. And actually, financially, I probably made a lot more money doing it that way because I had a few different customers between May and June, if that makes sense. And then I also did an on-farm farm stand. And then each week I would kind of see what my pre-orders were. I also did an online store, so people could pre-order and just come pick up on Saturday mornings, or they could just show up and shop the farm stand, or they could do both. Once my pre-orders were in each week, I could kind of determine if I had anything extra that I didn't think I would move on the farm stand. And so I could also list on the online market that Ben was referring to. So that's basically where I sold all of my, what I consider extra produce every week. And it was amazing. And so I'm just going to run my, my whole season exactly the same way this year. Although I don't know if I'll partake in the online market. If they're, I'm sorry, Ben, I didn't hear if you talked about whether you guys are doing that again, but that piece I'm not sure about. So I have, again, a May CSA, a June CSA, and then farm stand for the rest of the season at my farm. A couple things about it is I was really surprised at how many people wanted to come out to my farm stand. And again, I'm right in Iowa City, so it's super convenient for people, which I had always had in the back of my head, like, would people come to the farm and wouldn't that be nice? And I was amazed at how many people, like, they just put it as part of their Saturday morning errands to stop by and see what I had. What was I going to say about that? Oh, one thing that was an important learning for me was there are a lot of people who don't like going to farmers market. And I've already been told by a lot of my customers who love the farmers market that, I mean, they're the people who aren't buying shares from me this year because they're like, no, I'm going back to the farmers market because they love the social part. They love shopping from all of their farmers. They love the market for all the same reasons that I love the farmers market. But there are a lot of people who don't like going to farmers market. They don't want to be finding parking or fighting the stroller crowd, or they're, you know, they
Making small talk.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, wow. So my customer base grew a lot because all those people who I know from around town and stuff like that, but just I've never seen at market are like, oh yeah, I'll come to your farm. I'm just not going downtown. So that's been a great piece of education that I never would have known that I could cultivate that without the pandemic. So that was nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah. And Eric, thank you for mentioning about that delivery, free delivery if you order more than X amount, because that could be a way that I could nudge up my online orders a bit. I did what you all said about the dollar amount of orders, both in person at the farm stand and online. It was far, far more than at the farmer's market. But I'm going to really think about that delivery, that free delivery thing, to see if I can't nudge up the individual orders online. I like that.
Yeah, because part of it, I feel like when, you know, some producers or some stores will put a minimum order on, like you can't order unless you're ordering, you know,
Mm-hmm.
$10 or $20 worth. But yeah, to have it just be an additional perk makes it, yeah, you want to bump it up. So
Yeah. And I like that better than the minimum order because
Right.
I'm okay. I'll set out just a bag of lettuce for you to come pick up.
Who else wants to share? Let's see. Emma, I know you made a lot of changes, and Danelle, I'm curious what you're hanging on to for next year or what you're giving up.
I guess I'll speak first as Emma. So we actually, it's interesting to hear Eric talk because we went to the home delivery model for a lot of what we did, but we just delivered our CSA, and we had typically only offered a CSA that was hooked to market pickup. So sort of to motivate people to show up to markets, but then with no markets open, we ended up doing having to sort of figure out a venue, and it just seemed really complicated in a pandemic. So we offered home delivery, and we charged $6 a share to deliver, and people didn't complain. So that's something I was actually hearing Eric. I think you could bump up that minimum order for free delivery, but partially on our end, we're located, 30 minutes from any of the places that we would be delivering to. So we have an extra cost in having to do that home delivery. But the other thing I just wanted to touch, Ben did an excellent job running Field Family because he had to put up with our 50-some varieties of apples we did a lot of experimenting with bag size, because before we've always sold apples in bulk and people pick out their apples, which obviously doesn't work in this sort of system. So I think at the beginning of the season, I remember having a conversation with Food Hub, and I said, I am absolutely not pre-bagging every purchase of apple. And that's exactly what we did. We pre-bagged every apple that we sold. And we figured some things out. We figured out sort of standard bag sizes that people wanted to purchase, and actually offering fewer options for bag sizes, and building in that cost. There's a cost to having to handle your produce and bagging it and packing it. And I think that's something I'm realizing people, I don't know, here, I live in Marion, but I farm outside of Central City, but to get Hy-Vee to even deliver groceries to us is $9, and we're literally only half a mile away from Hy-Vee. So I think we want to make sure as farmers we're not underselling the service that we're providing, because definitely the produce we're delivering is highly superior to what Hy-Vee we could get from Hy-Vee. So that's something to keep in mind. But I was also going to mention, it wasn't until October for our CSA that we started offering that people could add on items to their share. And I don't know why it took it. We were slow adapters on the whole system.
You had a few things on your mind.
But it was huge. We had always offered that people could pre-order and then pick up from the farm. But then we had a couple customers say, oh, can I just pre-order and you deliver it with my share? And we're like, oh, sure. So we added that as an option just through a stupid Google form type option thing. And suddenly we were selling an extra $1,000 worth of produce that we were already going to these places. So it was a funny thing, a little bit harder to manage logistically. So we're definitely investing in a better ordering program so we can manage that better. But yeah.
Have you picked out a new ordering program? And are you going to do deliveries this coming year again?
Yes, we're going to do deliveries, and we came really close to doing barn to door. And I'm actually like a little bit hearing Eric talk about it, I'm like, maybe we should have gone with them, but we actually went with Local Food Marketplace. They do offer, they're kind of new to it on the farmer end. They're much more familiar with working with food hubs, but from an inventory management, last year we managed 4 virtual markets, and figuring out where to list our inventory and make sure we weren't overselling product was a kind of a huge issue. So we're just trying to eliminate having a lot of different places to list our products. So that's, in the end, I actually think Local Food Marketplace is currently offering less service than what barn to door is, but just having it a little less complicated from a logistics standpoint made sense for us.
Mm-hmm. Who else would like to share what they're keeping from their COVID changes? Danelle.
Yeah, I can share. It's like, oh man, everything that happened over the last year, right? How do you succinctly share things? So in the early year, I have vegetables and I'm down in Harrison County, kind of near Council Bluffs, Omaha. I had online ordering with different pickup locations and also a weekly box that I eliminated a couple of years ago. The pandemic caused me to reintroduce both of those things, but in a more abbreviated fashion. I think maybe we were one of the first farmers markets to start up in May in the state. It seemed like, I think we started like on May 22nd, and it seemed like we were one of the early ones. Historically, or in the last couple of years, I've been primarily selling through our county farmers market and then also through farm table procurement and delivery out of Harlan. So a couple of interesting things happened. Like on the farm table side, the restaurant orders, most of my orders through farm table tended to be from restaurants. Those went away, but what I saw was a lot of direct customers signing up for farm table. And so I was still maintaining a good sales level, but instead of selling 5 pounds of spinach to one restaurant, now I'm selling 5 pounds to 10 different people in 10 different places. You know, so it was like a packaging thing. As far as the farmer's market, I was trying to make it contactless. I say trying to make it contactless. So I was requiring everything to be pre-ordered. The platform that I used, which I had used several years ago, is farmmatch.com. So it's not super fancy, but it works really well. And so I required everything to be pre-ordered at the first farmer's market, and that was great. But what I quickly learned is that people still wanted that farmer's market experience. And so kind of over time and over the course of the season, I shifted closer to being just doing business as usual, but making it as contactless or limited contact as possible. What I learned is that the online pre-orders for the farmer's market saved me, and my farmer's market sales were way up for the year. But it was probably at least 50% the pre-orders that saved me there. Going into this year, things have changed because in November and December, we did an experimental pop-up. I know Artie was saying that they did a pop-up market of some sort in Atlantic. We actually rented a space on Main Street in town and did a seasonal pop-up that went really well. So we were selling our vegetables, but also aggregating products from other people. And now it went so well that we've signed a year lease and we're opening a store and we're getting a retail food establishment license. So we're going to get meat, dairy, and eggs. Yeah. So the moral of my story on this, you guys, is this would not have happened the way that it did had it not been for the pandemic, because I think we just happened to do this experimental pop-up on Main Street at a time when people are like, we care about our community. We care about local food. We want to support our neighbor who has this business. And so people are coming to our store who somebody else said earlier, maybe it was Bonnie. There are people who do not want to go to the farmer's market or can't go. It doesn't fit into their lifestyle or their schedule. And so I'm seeing people come to the store who that demand was there, but I didn't know that demand was there because they didn't know they couldn't get to the farmer's market. So jury is still out on how I'm handling farmer's market. I think I'm going to hire someone to do it for me, which will be a whole new animal. I don't know if we'll do online ordering or not. If not, I think it'll hurt my sales. And then definitely going full steam ahead on the whole store thing and seeing where this goes and riding the pandemic wave as it relates to local foods with the store, I guess.
Are you going to bring any, whoops, sorry. Are you going to bring any other vendors into your store, or who do you have? I know you have some artisan products. Are you going to be getting any like meat or?
Yeah. So what's really cool, one of my favorite things is every Tuesday, I always drive to Harlan and deliver my produce order to Farm Table so that they can deliver it for me. Well, what started happening is I would place an order for maple syrup and polenta and other items, and I would pick that up from Farm Table because now we're a customer of them buying things to sell in our store. And then just producers in our area, other farmers market vendors. So we have honey and even like herbal products and that kind of thing. We have some of our own added value products. But yeah, Liz, on the retail food establishment license, we're now starting to talk to meat vendors, and we'll do cheese and other dairy products and eggs and things like that. So we want to have a little bit of everything you know, it's just the aggregation of it is awesome. Like I love the aggregation, but I also, it takes a lot of time to find the products and the producers. So if anybody has any recommended makers anywhere across the state, let me know.
Awesome. We have a few minutes, 5-6 minutes left. Is there anyone else? If your videos aren't on, it's hard for me to call on you, but I'd love to hear from others on the call, on the meeting, on the Zoom. James, John, Alex.
If there's nobody going to say anything, I'd like to talk a little bit about what Denell is doing, because I think there's a credible opportunity with all of the vineyards and orchards and all of these places that have their own farm stores, that is a way of being in a community and having products that are local. And even Lockers, you know, the one in State Center has a full section of cheese in there. And I think there's a lot of stores out there that could build on what Donnell is doing. So
yeah,
the
Emma,
distribution function is hard, but yeah.
Emma, what's the latest on your farm store?
Well, we keep postponing when our real grand opening is. 2020 was supposed to be the year. So we were open, and we originally had started where we just people would order and we'd walk their orders over to their car, like to their trunk, but it got a little too much to handle. So we ended up just having changed it. We didn't let people in the store, but we had people could come up to the window. We had one window for ordering and one window for pickups, and pre-orders could just go to the pickup, which worked out okay, especially because I work with my parents, and they are definitely in the group that was most concerned about getting COVID, and we wanted to keep everyone safe. So that was sort of our decision to not let people into the store. We're actually working on making modifications to how our store and how it connects to the rest of our building, so that we can sort of have it closed off and hopefully this year let people in the store. But our idea was exactly what Gary is talking about, is trying to be a hub for people to have we want to have a local farmer's eggs and dairy and meat and all of those things available with our store, along with some of our products, but some of other vegetable farmers products, because we typically grow more of a limited view. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to connect, even in what we consider a very rural community. We had a lot of people coming from those very rural areas that aren't really being serviced. You know, farmers markets always directed us to the big cities and never really directed us to the community that we actually live. So we're really excited about being able to be kind of embracing and being part of our community, rather than kind of turning our backs on it and heading to Cedar Rapids and Iowa City exclusively.
On Emma's point, I'd like to add, Liz, if it's okay. People are really proud of where they come from and proud of where they live. And what I'm seeing with the store is, like, we have t-shirts that have the One Farm logo on it, and I always make sure to say Logan, Iowa on it. And what I discovered with the store is someone would come in and literally spend $140 just piling things on the counter. And they're like, oh, I need a One Farm coffee mug, and I need a One Farm t-shirt, and I need these herb salts, and I need this goat milk soap, because they were sending Christmas gifts around the country and they wanted gifts from Iowa. So I'm sharing that as, like, if any of you have any shelf stable products that can be shipped, keep that in mind during the holidays, that people want to say, hey, I'm sending a little piece of Iowa to my friends in California or whatever. And just anytime you can say, this is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or whatever, people love that and they're proud of that.
It's true. I just bought a Jewel Iowa t-shirt at the Locker. Last thing I need. Anyone else want to ask a question or follow up on something that they heard?
Could I ask one?
Yeah.
Ben, is Ben still on here?
He is. He's chatting at you.
Oh, he's answering my question. Okay. I mean, before this year, the focus over there in Iowa City, I think with Field of Family, was primarily wholesale accounts, institutional sales, but you shifted this year to doing direct to consumer. What do you think about those two? And which is where are you going in the future? Because I know selling wholesale is hard. So.
Mhm. Yeah, great question, Gary. And yeah, I'm sure echoed what the other food hubs at wholesale have gone down. And in the chat, you'll see one of the biggest obstacles for me was volunteers and just the labor that's involved in fulfilling an a la carte model. I think that's why you see more of the CSA model food boxes, because it's not so detail oriented. So that's a big obstacle. And as I've been planning for this upcoming year, that's something I try to be mindful of is, if we want to do a Saturday curbside pickup, well, volunteer availability is going to be more probable on a Friday afternoon and into the weekend than it is if we tried Wednesday and tried it on a Tuesday afternoon and during the work week. And that's something that I've felt like limited how much you can do in terms of just fulfilling the orders in a timely manner, and also doing it safely as well. But it just seems like it's possible to have both exist, and that a food hub could be kind of overseeing both of them. But yeah, the direct to consumer definitely was more, at least from my experience, was more just detail oriented than a wholesale, where it's one customer and one producer, but it's a large order. Whereas it's a lot of customers and a lot of producers, but a lot of orders. So.
But for the sustainability of your hub, is it direct to consumer that gives you the most income, or is it the wholesaling? That's what I'm.
Oh, okay. So we did generate a lot of income with November and December market, because we added a margin, and that helped to make up for a large loss of what we were expecting in wholesale. And so I guess it's kind of also is, what the landscape of the, local foods looking like right now, that, people, their direct to consumer is emerging and wholesale wasn't doing so well. So, I mean, to adapt and kind of go with what's happening, it would be a viable option. I don't know if the a la carte option would be viable for a food hub, if the number of people aren't there to help fulfill orders. But in certain areas, a food box could be an option, but we've also heard some pushback on the food box itself. So it seems to be unique to whatever, the community is with the food hub itself. So it kind of presents its challenges within each community, I would say.
My opinion is direct to consumer is the best because the margins are best, but that's my thoughts. And schools don't have a lot of money, so.
And yeah, I definitely think that it's an option. And I was actually watching that Rico model, and so that was very, it's fascinating to see that it's possible and that it's thriving in other areas. And so I'm hoping that we could do something similar to the Rico model, and this really seems like what emerged within Iowa City. So it's possible.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the chat about the different types of software for business management. And Sandy, I'm looking at you. So people are using QuickBooks. I don't know, Sandy, what experience you have with point of sale systems, but for integrating those types of things, do you have any good resources to point people toward with your business background?
So I have used Square as well. I've used QuickBooks. I've used Quicken. I also use something called Accounting Made Easy with some consulting I do. The struggle is the same across all of the platforms. It's really a function of how much money you want to spend. And even with the specific farm accounting / marketing systems that you have, it really is, there is no one solution at this level of business for us. QuickBooks is easy to use, and if you want to streamline your business and can use your smartphone to upload directly into QuickBooks to eliminate some of those user errors, that's a great solution. I think Square is starting to open up their functionality a little more. It's more of a paid subscription. I'm seeing the same thing in the chats. So, I don't have a solution for you other than I've experienced everything that I'm reading in the chats, and there is no one great thing. And other than the more money you spend, the better functionality you get. And I think as a small business owner and as a small farmer, I'm reluctant to spend the money, but the more I use things, the more I realize that my time is valuable as well. And so it's probably better if I just bite the bullet and get the functionality I need. It's a couple $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 is a lot of money for us. However, if we were to pay someone else to do that, we would spend a whole lot more. So if we can use a piece of software, just some food for thought, if you've got to spend $2,000 for it, you will save yourself that many hours of beating your head against the wall of trying to figure out A, where's my inventory, and B, where did I make the mistake? So hopefully that gave you a answer for a non-answer.
Well, it's at least, I always think, comforting to hear that someone who knows a lot about it doesn't have the answer either. So Jim, I'm looking at you too, because I know your wife. And what has been your thought process? Jim's married to Susie Hauken, our finance person. So Jim, what's been your thought process on getting set up with your inventory and business management software?
Oh goodness. So we're just getting started. We're in our first couple months here, trying to grow microgreens and doing direct to consumer with home delivery model. And from some of the mentors that I'm following, they suggested Square, and it took me a couple of practice runs just trying to sell my own product to myself to even figure out how to charge things correctly. And then on my first week of sales, we had $50 worth of sales, but then in the reports in Square, I had a customer who wasn't sure if they wanted anything because we're direct to door, and I was going to their town that day and was like, hey, if you want some, I'll sell it to you. I'll bring it over. And they backed out. And then later in the day, they're like, yeah, sure. If you're around, bring it over. So in Square, I had already canceled that order and then created a new customer and then brought them, charged them for that. And so everything balanced out the way it was supposed to. But then in my reporting, it showed an imbalance of that $5 of that item later in my reporting. That otherwise, if it was on a paper process or any other sort of accounting system, it wouldn't even exist as a problem. So now I just have to remember, hey, this $5 deficit of a returned product is just changing people changing their mind, where normally at a market they would just walk to another booth and then come back. Because it's in this sort of rigid system and I'm just starting to get used to the software, it's a little bit extra tedium to think through that. So I'm definitely interested in what people are doing for managing all of the accounting and responsibility reporting on the back end. But
Well,
it definitely has helped me on the point of sale side.
you just know that we are watching you and Susie to see what you guys do.
I was hoping she would
High
pop in and give
expectations.
give options, because she's a professional day in, day out with QuickBooks and things like that.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Jim. A few minutes left. Anyone else want to chime in on any of the topics? Danelle, I see you're talking about MailChimp. Actually, you know what I would like to know? Is there anything that I or PFI can be doing in the coming months to help on any of these topics or moving the conversation forward? I think I'm planning to do a series of virtual meetings in February once I get out of this conference mode. But if there are particular ideas you have, I'd be happy to hear them now. Of course, you can get them to me later too, but go ahead.
Liz, I just want to chime in that I think for us, inventory management is probably the thing we spent the most work on this year because of the switch to everything being virtual. And yeah, it's interesting to see what people are using, because on my end, just working with the 4 virtual platforms, we ended up dropping one of the virtual platforms because it was so onerous to use to figure out on the back end what our orders were. And if someone hasn't started with a virtual platform, that's something to pay attention to, is like, does it generate pick lists? How does it generate that information so you can use it? Does it generate a packing list for each customer that's large enough type that your, workers who maybe are over the age of 70 can read, because they, I mean, those are all things that literally that's how we are now making our decisions of like how user friendly the back end is almost more important than the front end, because we just wasted a lot of hours trying to figure out people's orders. I don't know if other people kind of experience the same problem.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I could almost see like a multi-part series or session or whatever, where it's like, okay, here are options on ordering platforms. Here are options on payment platforms. Here are options on POS and managing inventory. And then here's on the bookkeeping side of things. And then how do you flow all of those things together? Or can we? Because it's like all these different pieces, and then you feel like you're at your desk all the time instead of outside working.
Great. Sandy says.
Yeah, I just unmuted as well.
Great.
Just to add to that. So QuickBooks is a really good, very simple program, even Quicken, for managing your finances. So your day-to-day accounting, am I making money? Am I not making money? Your inventory, and it will import, and you can get CSVs to import and export, what have you. If you just use that for the financial end of things and then use a Square or whatever you're using your pick list for, choose the rest of the pieces so that you can export with the CSV to QuickBooks. There is no one simple solution, which may be a great product idea I'm hearing. But that would be a solution if you're able to use CSVs at all and streamline whatever pieces of software you're using for the different parts of your business and then import them into QuickBooks. That seems to be the clunkiest, most streamlined way to go at this point.
All right. Well, we're actually out of time for the session now. So this is a fun conversation. I feel like I haven't talked to people outside of my family and in the PFI staff in a while. So it was good to see all of you, and hope to see you at the happy hour later tonight, and at the keynote and tomorrow. So yeah, be in touch. Keep talking to each other too, because I feel like you all have better ideas, and then I hear about it through the grapevine and get a lot of joy out of that. So all right, take care, everybody.